Welcome back to my channel. This is Michelle for Afro Expats. Today I have the pleasure of speaking to Takiyah. She is located in Merida. We met online, as I keep meeting everyone online, and she's willing to share her journey to Mexico, why Mexico, and whoever, who knows what else we're going to get into. So I'm excited to have this conversation. We have already great synergy. We're over here cracking up pre-video. So hit it, Takiyah. It's on you. Let us know where you're from.
Yes, well, Michelle, thank you so much. It is such an honor and such a pleasure to connect on your platform and to just connect with other Black people, beautiful melanated souls in Mexico. Yes, yes, yes. So my name is Takiyah, and I was originally born in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Okay.
So met lots of interesting people in Las Vegas, Nevada. And just fast forward, well, you know what? I think it's probably relevant to share with the audience that I did not grow up poor by any means. And so the reason why I say that is not like, oh yeah, look at me, I'm awesome. But I say that because of the amount of income that was in the household. Mm-hmm. That was actually my first exposure to living overseas. So in my youth, I was sent to many countries as a foreign exchange student. So I was in Spain and Korea, and I was in Germany and in Mexico and Ukraine, right? So it was just kind of one of those things where the members of my household understood how important it was for international travel, especially being a Black individual, how much that would shape the way that I showed up in the world. So going to Mexico the second time was not something that was scary to me. It allowed me at a very young age to understand the difference between what is versus what the media tells you something is, right? And this huge contrast. So I just, that's kind of a little point that I want to highlight just to give some context to my move. So that, the story flows a little bit better. Long story short, I ended up meeting this amazing man. We went out to Texas. Texas was, I really enjoy Texas. Texas is definitely, I call it the country of its own.
It is the country of its own. I'm over here cracking up because I'm like, you enjoyed it? Okay. I lived there too. I lived in Dallas for 4 years and
Dallas is, we lived just a little bit outside of Dallas because Dallas was a little intense.
I just, you know what it was? It was that chapter as well. I can say on the plus side, I'll throw the plus out there before I start complaining, but it was that you can make a good living and you can get a lot more for your money. And as they say, everything's bigger in Texas. If you're into that, I want a bigger home, I want a bigger car, I want a bigger whatever, bigger salary, it exists. But culturally, that's the part I could not adjust. I just couldn't adjust. I grew up in Connecticut, so for me it was really a culture shock. It was it was like Caucasians, Blacks, and Mexicans, and there was nothing in between for me. I don't know about other people's experiences, but for me, that was like, I don't know why, it felt so foreign because in Connecticut, there was a very large Caribbean population. So I was kind of like missing, my Caribbean roots in some form. So that was really like challenging.
Yes, no, I can definitely understand that because you see that, I'm here and not Texas. So I definitely have I definitely have an appreciation. I definitely have an appreciation for that because I also dealt with those same kind of social challenges. The reason why Texas, to your point, was palatable enough for me was because of the economic opportunity that existed.
True.
And not, revealing what my political affiliation is. And I'm going to say political within air quotes, but Texas being Republican, and I'm not saying I'm a Republican, but Texas being Republican actually protected a lot of things for me on a personal standpoint, as opposed to a very democratic state like Nevada. So,
Right. Okay.
so that's why it was at least palatable for me.
Mhm.
That's what
Right.
I'll say.
Okay.
But it's still, once again, just in terms of mindset, it wasn't my vibe at all.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah.
I get it. I trust me, Rochelle, I really do get it.
So where would you consider yourself that you grew up for the majority of your childhood? What
Oh,
place?
Nevada.
Nevada. Okay.
Las Vegas.
Okay. All
Las
right.
Vegas. And yeah, that whole West Coast way of living was very, very different from the Southern way of living. So
Yeah.
at some point, I just had to tell people, I was like, hey, I am who I am. So
Right. That's true. That's true. I mean, those experiences form us, so I get
right.
it.
Right, right.
Mhm.
So anyway, the reason why we ended up making our way down to Mexico, it was actually a very, very funny story as to how we got here.
Mhm.
But it was just kind of one of those things where I moved out to Texas to
Mhm.
be with my significant other, and Texas is his stomping ground. So he was born and raised in Texas,
Okay.
and we just were not thriving. We were not thriving in Las Vegas, which is where I met him.
Mhm.
And it was just the funniest thing. The best way that I can describe it is that we hated everything about Vegas, right? And that's not to say that the place doesn't have anything, to offer, and that there aren't amazing people in there. But I just think that, I'm a firm believer that when you just know you're not in the right space, you hate the way the sun shines. You just hate the way birds chirp, and you're like,
Yeah.
I hate it, and that was us collectively.
Right.
So I was very much ready to get out of Las Vegas, and he was like, well, you know what, let's go back to Texas, because Texas is at least the place that I know.
Right.
And so we went out there, and then, as we spoke about, earlier, there were just some challenges. For me, Texas was very hard on me emotionally, because that's a good old boys club. That's a good old boys state all day long. And it was very hard on me emotionally, because although you have people there who are just like, they're just as sweet. They're like, oh, hi, do you want some peach cobbler? And they're just as sweet as pie, and you know what I mean, and whatnot. You're still looking at certain things around you. You're still looking at this economic stratification, right? And at one point in time, I had taken a position in Fort Worth, because I was hired to be the assistant director at an incubator. And I dealt with a lot of entrepreneurs. Well, that segment was very, very dichotomized. I'm just gonna, I can't even say it was just multifaceted. It was dichotomized. And I dealt with those who had the money, right? And they were profit generating. And I dealt with those who did not. And I'm sure we can probably identify who had the money, and we can probably identify who didn't, right?
Who did not, right?
Right. And so it's just, and then I would go around the neighborhoods, and and I would do a lot of volunteer work. I would do a lot of volunteer work for even some of the small businesses that, I was assisting. And there was just this particular business owner that I was doing work with. And this particular business owner had a food business, and she was working out of what was called a co-working kitchen, right? So it's, for anyone who's not familiar, it's a commercial space that is basically where they allow you to just kind of rent out their kitchen by the hour or whatnot, because just licensing and sanitation and, what I mean, health department, permits or whatever, it just gets very, very expensive. And so this particular co-working space was out of a shelter, right? It was out of a homeless shelter. And so was the business's administrative office. And I was helping with an event that we actually had to do at a Montessori school, literally like 2 blocks away. And so I walked in, to go just do my tasks, and I caught the children coming in, and I kind of get choked up to this day. But I caught the children walking in, and every single one of these children were Black. Every single one. And as a mother, it just does something to you.
It does.
To look at these beautiful brown babies and just to see the level of defeat in their eyes. And so they came in, and it was, it was their lunchtime. And the only thing that they had to eat for lunch, it was not their snack, because the shelter was just going through some cash flow issues, obviously, and, some funding issues, sans why they were doing the co-working kitchen in the first place. But the only thing that these babies had were animal crackers. So, so they're serving the children, and they're just eating animal crackers. That was their lunch. And to see what felt like a sea of Black faces, knowing that they just weren't even eating anything nutritious, it was just doing stuff to my psyche. So, I kind of collected myself, I got myself together, and so we could go to this Montessori event. Well, we go ahead, we prep everything so we can bring, the things over to the Montessori event. And of course, when I walk in the door, right, I see a sea of other kids. And, oh, here you go. Here is the gourmet salad bar. Oh, and the yoga station is over there. And by the way, here you go. Here are some healthy desserts. And here's the meditation area. And to literally have seen that great of a disparity with kids
2 blocks apart,
2 blocks apart, and within a 20-minute time frame. I called my significant other, and when I called him, you would have thought somebody got shot because of the way that I was just crying. And I said, I can't do it. I said, I cannot be around this scenario. I cannot be around this environment where, especially as a daughter, and my daughter is biracial. That's another story for another day. But my daughter is biracial. And I said, I can't do that. I can't imprint in my own child that everyone who looks like phenotypically one side of her family has access to this, has access to wealth, has access to resources, and everyone who looks like her mother, the very person that carried her, right, that protects her, that nourishes her, is destitute. I can't do it. What am I imprinting into my child? And so I said, at this point, I need you to get me out of here.
I need a ticket, one-way direction somewhere else.
Right.
No, I totally understand that. That's a very impactful story and, situation. And I think sometimes we see it and we're so sometimes immune to it until we're in a position like that, where we see it all the time. We've seen it our whole lives. But I think when we're in a position like you were able to go from a 20-minute span of time, 2 blocks, a shelter, to a Montessori situation where most of us, well, I don't say us, I'm going to say I can't afford to pay for that kind of scenario. Because from when I was pregnant, I wanted the best things. I think most parents think this way. Parents, and I say of all colors, think this way. We want the best things for our children. We want to improve their situation over whatever our experiences might have been. And I started looking at, schools, where to live, where to this, where to that, should I go to Canada? Because I was born in Canada, so I had that as an option. I wanted more of a mix, more multicultural. I wanted him to see something else, so it didn't feel like, what I'm seeing is what life is forever. It's a mindset. It really, a big part of it's a mindset, and it's where your situation happens to be, or your environment, and you're stuck there, and you think, okay, these are my three options out, let me
Yes.
sell drugs, let me get in
Yes.
trouble, or whatever. And I hate to say that, but it happened in my complex. There
Mm-hmm.
was, when my son was 1 or 2, there was a young boy, three of them actually, living next door, and he was about 14 or so, and his mom was fantastic. She was in church, she was a deacon, she was, and she had a great job, but we lived in an area that wasn't fantastic. It wasn't really hardcore hood, but it wasn't, like you said,
Right.
wasn't fantastic. And within a 3 or 4 year time span, I saw this kid just go downhill.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I hate to say it, but he was my example of what I did not want for my child. I was
Yes.
absolutely against it. They would just hang out, and it was just like this mentality of, oh, I'm just going to make music, or I'm going to do whatever.
Right.
Nothing wrong with those things either, but it's that fantasy in my mind where you see something on TV and you think, oh, this is the life I'm going to be, blah, 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 and I'm going to be blah, blah, blah. Now, if you aspire for that and you have clear direction on how to get to that, or you work really hard for that, but mixing that with the social problems, the economic problems, the environment that they're subjected to, more than likely they're going to hit a failure button, right?
Absolutely.
And that's exactly what happened. I mean, I don't know what, but he's in jail now. So, here's this young, good looking kid who is probably not having like kind of the outlets that I think we all need as humans. And you just see like, this thing all the time. And having one parent in the household that is, well, even two, that's working really hard and showing them success, but all of these other things are like taking away from that because this looks more attractive to them because this is all they know. It's like one extreme to the other. So it's really sad. And I think that a lot of times we don't always have time as people, working hard day in, day out, trying to make money, trying to make the ends meet, to structure a future for our children, right? We, like you said, the kids in the shelter, they're struggling. Their parents don't have time to think about, oh, where else would I want to live? So my kid, I mean, they're thinking about it probably, but it's like, how can I get there when I have this pile of problems and issues? I'm just trying to eat right now. You know what I'm saying?
And I have a couple of resources as we progress through the interview. I definitely have a couple of resources for that as well. That were just, they were just life altering for me. In fact, I would go as far as to say that one of the resources actually saved my life. I mean, it was just absolutely, absolutely. Because it's just so systemic and it's so perfected, right? I mean, this notion, this has been going on since we've been here, for those of us who believe in, more of our foundational Black American roots or our indigenous roots, and for those of us who have been taken here, right? For those of us who have more of a Pan-African ideology about our origins, either or, it doesn't change the fact that this system was literally, or that particular system of supremacy and suppression was absolutely created based off of our exploitation and our destruction.
Absolutely.
And it's been perfected. It's been perfected for, half a millennia. So,
it's true. It's a struggle. I mean, it's a constant struggle. Even where there is success, it's the mindset of what success is, number one, and where the money is being placed. Even if you make a lot, did they teach you how to invest it? Did they teach you how to not get into credit card debt? Did they teach you how to not spend it all on things? I could go on about that.
Yes. And for, and for your audience, one of the individuals that I would highly recommend that you all follow would be Raj Chetty. Raj Chetty is just brilliant. RAJCHETTY. And he actually just talks about the engineering of stratification, specifically with Black people. And he actually, he's a Harvard, I believe he's a Harvard economist, and he'll, he actually shows, even if you grew up in a upper middle class or middle class, the likelihood that you're going to fall back into poverty because of just, various things like the fact that hiring racism hasn't changed, since the 1950s, or, the income suppression that you're likely going to experience. But like I said, I'll kind of save that stuff for, for a
our business chat. Like,
yes,
let's do that. But I wrote it down anyway. I'm going to list this in the description because, people want to know.
And Peter Temen, they're phenomenal. But we didn't. So once I said I need my ticket out of Fort Worth, we didn't immediately leave the U.S. because my significant other had never stepped outside of the United States a day in his life.
Okay.
And so, now he will tell you that he is reformed, right? He is reformed, but he absolutely used to be one of those individuals that believed everything that he heard and saw on TV. And he believed in that American exceptionalism, and America is the greatest place and Texas is the greatest place, right? So now we kind of have, that Texas flair to that American exceptionalism. And it was just literally like, he's a Scorpio, I'm a Scorpio. And when
I'm a Scorpio.
Right. So, Michelle, when we're, and we'll just butt up against you. And it's like, you probably have an easier time when we're entrenched in a belief. You will probably have an easier time pushing a boulder up the Andes in high heels before you can actually get us to move, right?
Oh my God, that's hilarious. Yes, no, it's true. Stubborn as ever.
Yes. So it was literally this multi-year battle, because he's so highly educated. I mean, and so incredibly skilled. And the thing that I kept telling him is, I said, you have literally achieved something in your family that no one in your family has ever done. You have owned and operated a business that has been completely sustainable and profitable. You got yourself a portable skill set. You literally can work anywhere in the world, but you stay here. And I know this and I know that. I mean, and at one point we had this argument, and it was almost like I felt like glass shattering, like in my head, when we were having this very heated argument about it. And I was like, I don't know what is worse. I don't know if it's your ignorance or your arrogance, or the combination of your ignorance and arrogance that makes you absolutely just maddening to me. But how the heck can you actually say that you know anything when the furthest that you've been is right across, like your armchair, your love seat? You don't know anything.
Exactly.
And before you tell anyone anything that you definitively know, you go there. Even when someone tells you this is how this is, you say, really, when was the last time you've been there?
Exactly.
Tell me, from your experience. Well, I read and I heard. No. I don't want to know what you read and heard. I want you to tell me what your experience was on the ground.
Exactly. Boots to the ground. No, I hear you. I said the same thing, because I've had lots of years of people saying, oh, there's this, that. I mean, even from way back, I think, my dad has traveled a lot, and as children, we just couldn't afford it. So he did a lot of stuff, missionary, church related. And, I always had like this big imagination. He would bring things back, and I would imagine, what was it like? What was it like for him? So I always had a travel bug. And when I started traveling a little bit, again, it wasn't big, but it was that I did it on my own. I would go from Connecticut to New York. Just 2 hours away, and I would take the train by myself. I was probably 18 or 19, and people would freak out, like, oh my God, you're going to New York. They don't know, something's going to happen to you. Blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, I'm sure I'm going to be fine, because how do they know I'm not from New York? It was just logic for me. And then I started to travel to DC in my car. I would drive by myself. I'd go visit my friends. And then little by little, I'd go, so the point of saying that is there's always a naysayer, always a naysayer. There's always someone ready to tell you what it's like, even if they haven't been there. There's always someone to discourage you. There's always someone to put the cloud of fear to try something new. And the sooner you recognize that, the sooner you start living more, because you have to decide for yourself what works for you and what does not work for you. And everything we try is an experience, and it's a learning experience. So I say maybe living abroad is not for everyone, but traveling is certainly for everyone. Even if you just travel around the US to start, just do it, get on a plane and go somewhere by yourself, just to, breathe, give it a shot. Nothing, say nothing's going to happen, but something could happen, but it could happen in your backyard. So,
well, see, and I take a little bit more of a radical approach, because I personally don't think I don't think any of us should be in a lot of these places that we come from, but because of just what it does with our psyche. But no, I agree with what you're saying. It isn't for everyone, but I just feel like the places that, the US especially, it definitely isn't for us, right?
Right.
So, but I do understand, and I do agree with what you're saying. For me, my thought process was this, right? And I some people call it militant. I don't particularly think it's militant, but this is what I do say, because you know what, I'm a nerd. I love geopolitics. I love trend analysis. I love migration analysis, financial things like that. I mean, I can just geek out on that all day. But one of the things that I keep telling our people is there's a country narrative. There's a country history, right? There's a national narrative and a national history, and there's a national axiology. And I'll break down what axiology means, because there's, like I said, a couple of resources I do want to share, with your audience. But there's that national narrative and that national axiology, and then there's you. Right. And there's a difference. Our history is different, right? When I would talk to Black people, for example, and they would say, oh yeah, I'm taking quantitative, analysis, and I'm taking quantitative management. I'm like, awesome. You particularly should read Accounting for Slavery, right? You should actually learn the origins of the accounting system and the, quantitative management system that was actually created as a result of slavery, and how they would actually calculate life expectancy, so they knew where to get the slaves, and they knew how they had meticulous logs on productive output. That's your history, right? So while you're learning this at Wharton, learn that at Wharton too, but learn your history as well, because you will understand that every institution around you was built off of your exploitation or the exploitation of your ancestors. So I think that when we talk about that, right, and then when we talk about like the national literacy, illiteracy level, that's fine. But then let's talk about the literacy level of little Black boys and little Black girls. It's only 4th grade. So heck, my thought is, you present, statistically speaking, the bottom of the barrel, right? So I don't really have that hard of a threshold to beat, right? Even if I go to a country and they educate my little Black child at a 6th grade level, it's still better than what we did in the US. So I'm happy, right?
That's true. That's true. And, there's the option to increase that by doing it yourself.
Yes.
And I know that's not for everyone, but I know a lot of folks do that here in Mexico.
Yes. And we're a homeschooling family as well. And it has been phenomenal. Child knows Singaporean math, and all sorts of things, and she's speaking Spanish, and,
Good.
So I just know that I don't look at the dominant society's statistics. I look at our statistics, and that's the threshold that we have to beat, right?
Right. And that makes a lot of sense. It's like, here's the real level, here's the real situation. Here's what I've already researched, what I already know, what I already experienced. And now I'm able to create less of a gap because I know what I need to do. Right.
Yes. So then before we ended up going, I'm going to get to the real tipping point of when it was like, all right, we're leaving, we're going to Mexico. So anyway, after Fort Worth, and I was like, I need you to get me out of Fort Worth. I can't. We ended up going to a suburb, Allen, Texas, and Allen, Texas.
I know Allen, Texas.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So we ended up going to a suburb. And interestingly enough, I ended up getting recruited by a financial services firm out in Frisco. So, and Frisco is, you know, for people who are not familiar with Texas, there's a lot of money, you know, that flows through Frisco. And, you know, and I think that at the time it was probably part of a diversity initiative, right, to go ahead and do that. And so I would go through the various trainings or whatnot, you know, and I'm going through learning the financial calculations or whatnot. And, you know, there's just certain things that, your financial advisor, they're never going to show you, they're never going to tell you. But, you know, I was going through that in the training, and I'm looking at how much money the average American, okay, and once again, we're going national narrative. I'm going to keep emphasizing that because I think at this point your audience knows what I'm implying. Right. But, you know, the national narrative is that you basically need like $2 million to go into retirement and to stay in retirement. Now, you can go into retirement, but on average, at the rate that people were saving, they were coming out of retirement between 10 to 12 years, right? Depending on what state they're in. And unfortunately, that's why you see a lot of our senior citizens working as, you know, greeters at Walmart.
At Walmart, right? Exactly.
Right. And so it was just kind of disgusting to me. And I just remember, because I'm just a naturally inquisitive and skeptical person. And I'm like, but here's the thing, like, I see a lot of us being greeters, and yeah, I might see some members of the dominant society, but that's just because they need something to do, right? They're like, oh my God, you know, I was driving my kids crazy, so I just came here and I'm just going to work here, and I'm like, here you go, right. here's your, you know what I'm saying? But with us, there was a real economic need to do it, and that broke my heart too. And so then, you know, I'm calculating, you know, all these fees that they take out of your retirement. And I'm like, okay, first of all, two things don't add up. Number one, why exactly would I allow somebody to take $400,000 of my money over the life of my retirement, first and foremost?
Right, exactly.
Second of all, the average American, because of inflation and just, you know what I mean? They don't have anywhere close to $2 million, right?
Of course.
And those statistical models, when they give you, you know, your numbers, I mean, they go ahead and they assume that you're going to make a certain amount of money, right? You know, on your portfolio. But realistically, if you were looking at the real inflation, the real inflation would eat over any, you know what I mean, minimal return on your retirement that you would get, right? So you're actually always in a net negative. Those statistical models are based on the income of white men, right? And we already know as Black men and Black women that we are paid less on the dollar, right? You know, the 63 cents on the dollar. So there's so many different things that are wrong with this. But I remember I was having a conversation with someone in the corporation, and I said, first of all, I said, no. The average American doesn't have anywhere between $2 million.
Exactly.
But I don't see lots of the members of the dominant society out here. I see us. What is it that you guys are doing that we're not? Exactly. And I was lucky enough to have someone who was in the building in the same industry, but not particularly in the same firm, say, well, realistically, we send him abroad. He was a retirement planner. He said, we send him abroad, right? And he was like, and I tell them, here's a portfolio. He had a short list. Okay. Here's a portfolio. And it's actually how I found, well, you know, we found the place that we're living in now. They've got phenomenal healthcare. Here's your cost of living, and you got two options, Jennifer. You can either go retire over here in Portugal. Maybe you'll like Porto. Maybe you'll like, you know, whatever, and get these things. And then you can stay in retirement on your $300,000, or you can stay right here and you can come out of retirement 12 years later and see who has a geriatric program that will employ you, right? Well, you know, Jennifer doesn't have a problem. Jennifer's like, well, let me get my COVID test and let me go ahead and get my medication and let me start looking for some real estate, right? And then he opened my world up and he was like, and the beautiful thing about that is if you stay abroad for a certain amount of time, then I can write up to $200,000 if you're married off in your earned income. I said, wait a minute. Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Hold on, did I hear you correctly? Right?
Exactly.
That was all I needed. And so then, I went down the rabbit hole, but then I've literally sat down and listened to financial advisors tell us, well, as long as you can work until you're 70, Mr. Jenkins, what do you mean? The average life expectancy for the Black male isn't even 70. So
Right.
I can assure you, from being behind the scenes,
Mm-hmm.
they are giving the dominant society completely different financial advice than what they're giving you.
Exactly.
And once again, when you think about the things that you're dealing with in the United States, I promise you, you likely don't have a very high threshold to beat. I promise you when you go to these other places.
No, that's true. And that's a great, great point and great perspective, because I don't think we all think about that. You know what I'm saying? I think it's, at least for us, we were just like, oh, we can retire in our early 50s. Let's go. At least that's what I was thinking,
Right.
And my husband was kind of on the, okay, if I stay here, because he was working for Yale, and he was just like, if I could stay here, I can get another pension and I can stay till I'm 60. I was like, why? Just for the sake of money. And in the end, like, are you going to enjoy that in good health later on down the line? We don't know. We don't really know what's going to happen. So if we can start now, like, and really recreate things in our lives, why not? And I think that a lot of folks just view this moving as, oh, how can I make money? And I understand that, because obviously you need it to survive. The difference is that you don't need as much, because things are not so crazy expensive. And in general, there's the cost of living. And I feel that the cost of living in Mexico, because a lot of time people ask that question, how much does it cost to live there? That's on you. I mean, honestly, it really is on you. It's like, do you want a house full? Do you want a half house full, or do you just need a comfortable place to be and you want to go outside and enjoy yourself? That really is a personal choice. I'm not saying that, you should live in a rat hole. I'm just saying, it really is on you. If you're okay with maybe a full immersion type situation where you wouldn't mind living just a little outside of a city or something like that, you can find very affordable rents. You can find affordable land. You can find affordable property. It's kind of, I feel like it's on you. Your imagination is this open to creating a new thing for yourself.
And not just that, Michelle, not just that, but let's also talk about the fact that you get access, right? And I think in terms of, for our people and our psyche, so much of our behavior in the United States is based off of proving to people that we deserve to be at the table because we're just as brilliant, just as intelligent, just as hardworking, if not more. And we do that because we know that we deserve access. So we're always, fighting and climbing, for access to whatever.
Right.
And I got to be honest with you. When I came out here, so two things. First, just the access to the quality health care. People somehow, I don't know what people think. I think sometimes they think that, Mexico and Mexicans, people are just now like coming out of dirt holes or something like that. You know what I mean? And they just have this very, very wrong opinion that, Mexico, because it's a poor country, you hear that all the time. First of all, I go to places that look like Las Vegas, right? And I'm like, oh, that's right. Girl, I'm in Merida. I'm not on Las Vegas Boulevard, right? So I think that there's just this notion that everything is poor, people are, regressive and, whatnot. And you come into these, facilities and you get this quality of care and this bedside matter, but you can afford it. You can literally afford to take the money out of your pocket and pay for that procedure, or you can afford to pay for that doctor's office. And, and the thing about it is, when you kind of just take a look at all of the race-based medical neglect, right? Like that doctor, it broke my heart, the one who died, and she was a doctor who could read her own, test, right, with COVID. And she's like, I am absolutely being discriminated against because I'm Black. But When you come here, they just see you as a patient.
Right.
You're not a Black patient. You're just a patient, and you get the access to quality health care, the things that you could
Exactly.
not afford in the States. You get the dignity that you deserve as a
Right.
human being, you know?
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
so and that's just a quality of life thing. So not only to just talk about that, but then there were certain things that I, quite honestly, Michelle, I felt guilty at when I first got here. I have since then have rid myself of that
Adjusted.
guilt, adjusted. But I was like, what do you mean I can have a live-in shelf? You know what I mean? Excuse me, chef.
Sure.
I mean, but I'm supposed to cook, right? Or I can have somebody come in and pick up my laundry, and you know what I
Right.
mean, and for pennies on the dollar, and I can actually engage in that self-care that, quite honestly, I never had the time
Exactly.
or the additional energy to even do. And it just makes me show up as a better
Right.
person to my
Exactly.
significant other, to my daughter, to my friends. I just, you're just rejuvenated because you have access to the things that you really didn't have in the States. And that access can be something as simple as dignity.
Exactly. And also along the same lines of just having access to it, you are pouring back into your local
Yes.
economy, and I think that's key because I think sometimes we do have to adjust ourselves. I know that, when I first got here, I was just like, I had someone that came right off the bat to help me clean and get the house set up because it wasn't given to me on a silver platter, which I was fine with. And I remember the property manager, she brought Julie over, and she was just like, Julie, you will do blah, 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 blah. And I was kind of like, oh, like you said, I felt a little guilty initially. I was just kind of like, oh, I don't want her to do that. I'll do this and I'll do that, da, da, da. But as time has gone on, I realized that this relationship that we have, it's not just about the service part, but it's that I'm providing her with things she needs as well, because
Yes.
I'm giving her something she can rely on.
Yes.
Even during COVID, it was sort of like, well, I don't want her to come, but I am going to continue to pay her because I can. I know that not everyone could do that, but I was making sure that, okay, and I would ask, do you have food, whatever. The point of saying all of that was I started to realize, okay, it's okay for someone to do something for you and for you to pay them for their time and their service, and fairly, and be gracious about it. And I absolutely, am in love with her because she's just, she comes, she's reliable. It's definitely an exchange. It's not like we're best friends and we hang out on the weekends. It's just a thing where I had to learn how to be okay with having that,
And
having
being
that
taken care
access,
of,
being
because
taken
you're the
care
one
of.
taking care of everyone else.
Right, exactly. And I think that that's one of the bigger pluses about moving to Mexico, like you said, even having a chef. Sometimes I think about, I'm like, oh, I know a few people, maybe I could have them come and prepare whatever, so we're not eating some fast quick cook thing because I'm super busy, working online all the time. But in saying that, that's a huge plus about Mexico, is that it gives you access to things that otherwise, the upper class enjoys in the US, period. I mean,
Yes.
why not us too? That's what I always
Yes.
say.
Yes.
If you can pay for it here and you can pay someone a salary and you're fair about it, that's also a struggle, because I know some people are not always fair about things. I
Yes.
think that that's another way to look at it, instead of feeling like, oh, I should get up and help them move that towel off the couch.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, but what's it like for your daughter? I mean,
Oh, she
how's
loves
she
it.
how's she
She
adjusting?
she loves it. She's made a lot of friends out here, and
Mhm.
and it's really funny because when a lot of people ask, are there Black people in Merida, are there Black people in Merida, I mean, it's almost kind of like you're like, oh, that's right, they're not here, right? And it's a legitimate concern. It's a legitimate I think that when people are moving anywhere, they just need to have a sense of family, right? And they have to have a sense of community. And realistically, it's funny because we have this amazing group that is very, very supportive. I mean, and we just love on each other and we just give people resources. You know, because it's kind of like it's a quote that one of the other expats in the group said. She said, "Well, if I've already paid for tuition, why wouldn't I just give you the game and scholarship?" Right? Like, and we just really, because the reality is that we know that when you have left the States, you have escaped, right? And we want you to stay. We want you to be a part of this fabric. We want you to be here. So we're going to do everything in our power to assist you to swim, because we darn sure don't want you sinking and thinking that you need to go back there. And then continuously perpetuating all of the atrocities that are happening against our people back there. So I think that, you know, anyone who's a little bit afraid of moving, the very first thing that they probably need to do is get on a Facebook group with, you know, because there's Black in just about everything. Black owned business in Mexico, right? Black owned in Mexico, or, you know, melanin in Merida or whatever. And you're going to find us. And I think that you just, even you quietly lurking and seeing what people are sharing, you know, there's your safety net. There's your safety net. And we have had so many people come out. I mean, you know, and we've met so many friends and, you know, celebrated, you know, some very, you know, beautiful things and life events with them, but they are our safety net, and we're their safety net because, you know, collectively we're gaining a collective knowledge that we have no problem sharing to see that you succeed.
Exactly. And that's also something that is key to kind of hone in on, because when I moved here in 2018, there were no pages. I mean, I think Caroline Membrano started the Black Expat community that year, because she also arrived in Mexico, and I didn't know her. I don't even know how we found each other online, and or just, you know, Facebook, it comes up if it sees that you're, you know, joining other things, and it came up. And I was so excited. And you know, there were some people on there, wasn't overly active, but, you know, I was just excited to see just a group in Mexico. And then I think I found the one in Mexico City, and then I started searching. But in the last year to year and a half, a ton of pages have popped up in not just Merida, everywhere. Tulum, Playa, Mexico City, here in San Miguel, Querétaro. I actually interviewed Bernie yesterday. She's the admin for Black Expats in Querétaro. And she just started her page, and I was like clapping for her. I said, "Girl, I saw your post on the other expat page." And she literally was like, "Are there any other people that look like me in Querétaro?" And she was barraged with a lot of negative comments. And I said, "Girl," and she started her page. And a friend of mine that lives here sent me a screenshot of her post and said, "Hey, maybe you want to reach out to, you know, this girl," and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, we connected in January, and, you know, we've been cool ever since. And now there are more people joining, more people interested in Querétaro. I didn't even know about Querétaro until I moved to San Miguel. I was always flying into Mexico City. I didn't even know there was an airport. Bad on me for not checking or researching, but I think I just saw cheap tickets from Florida, and I'm like, "Oh, Mexico City, $200 round trip. Okay, let me do that." But then I had to get here, right? 4 hours later. My point is that now in 2020 and 2021, there are lots and lots of pages that can give you info, YouTube channels, podcasts, you name it. So the inspiration exists, the information is out there for everyone. And just doing these interviews, you know, you can see that people have confidence in where they are. You know, it's not like they got there and they're like, "Oh my God, I'm scared to live here." At least I haven't met anyone that was like, you know, freaked out by it. I do think there are challenges, but there are challenges anywhere in the world. And people need to understand that. So so what things do you do in Merida? What things are so you have one daughter, or okay, and what's her age, if you didn't mind me?
10.
Okay,
10,
so she's
going
10.
on 40.
All right.
She's such a little lady.
I love it.
she's 10, 10.
Okay, well, hopefully we'll meet in person. My son's 9. He's
Okay,
nine, almost
yes,
9.5. Yeah, and he loves it
yes.
here. He's fluent in
Oh, that is,
Spanish. Mhm.
yes, yes,
Yes.
that is awesome. That's
Mhm.
awesome. Well, right now I'm kind of I am I'm setting the groundwork for a podcast that I am
Okay.
going to be launching
Mhm.
very, very soon. And it's a little bit more on the financial wellness side of our being. And that's actually just kind of, I want to just touch on, a couple points with
Mhm.
you
Sure.
before, if you don't mind, and I don't want to cannibalize your time, but
No, it's
um,
okay.
okay, I think it's so important to go back to what I was saying about just the financial advice that we're being given, and also put in another resource that literally I would say changed and saved my life.
Mhm.
There is this book. It's called what is it? Vanishing. Why can I not remember the title? So it is
Like I've heard of this.
Power and Prejudice. It's Vanishing Middle Class: Power and
I have heard of
Prejudice
that. Mhm.
by a Dual Economy. In a Dual Economy by Peter Temen.
Okay.
And Peter Temen literally just he takes off your blinders, and he
Mhm.
literally just he gives you it's a policy book, which is why I love it, but he
Mhm.
literally just breaks it down to you black and white, like this is how you were engineered to
Mhm.
fail. This is literally
Mm.
black people, like it's literally a book written for black people, right? And he's
Okay.
like, and here is how the system by the policies ensure that it will happen, right?
Mm.
And here are the various things that I can prove with you with 60, 70, 80 years worth of data that
Mhm.
will instantly, well, not instantly, but let me retract the word instantly, but will eventually really
Mhm.
bring you out of poverty.
Mhm.
And not to give a spoiler alert, but one of the
Mhm.
things that he talks about is careers in the finance, technology, and engineering fields,
Mhm.
right? So,
Mhm.
and not the retail side of these things, right?
Mhm.
The more analytical side of these things,
Mhm.
And so when you kind of take a look at like even a tax professional, the average tenure of a tax professional is 27 years, right? Like 30
Mhm.
years. I mean, it's one of the, so he talks about these various things that we are short in, right? And he's like, even if we compare salaries of like, let's just say the CEO of McDonald's versus the
Mhm.
CEO of TransferWise, right?
Mhm.
Historically across the board, you're going to see that your middle class incomes are always going to be in finance, technology, and engineering. And
Mhm.
interestingly enough, these are also these subject matters in our communities where we are arrested, right?
Okay, right.
So, so you think about like blockchain technology. Do you
Mhm.
know of any? Do you know of any school in the United States right now that is
Mhm.
teaching blockchain technology? How you literally can code the blockchain in any of our communities? Can you just name one, Michelle? Can any of your viewers name one?
No.
Well, interestingly enough, 30 minutes away from me, sitting in Merida, I do. And
Oh,
it's only
okay.
$25,000 for the entire program. And this
Wow.
school is teaching machine learning, artificial intelligence, the C++ front end, back, front stack,
Mhm.
excuse me, why can I think? Front end development, full stack
Mhm.
development. They're
Mhm.
teaching all of these things that
Mhm.
once again, you are likely going to struggle to just even find out there, especially in
Mhm.
our communities. And if you do it, you probably are going to have to sell some internal organs on a, you know what I mean,
To
just to
afford it.
be able to
Okay,
afford
so I
it.
have a question about that school. Is this like a university or is it like, for a 2-4 year program, or is it like a certificate type thing? Do you know?
It's a university,
Okay.
and so but they do have shortened programs as well,
Okay.
right? So they do have accelerated programs.
Okay.
Um, but my point to that is if your readers were to read Peter Temen's book,
Mhm.
and
Vanishing middle class. I'm going to put that
yes,
in the description. Mhm.
and he literally is like, this is why when we talk about in terms of economic mobility and traction among the Black community,
Mhm.
this is where the gap is. And if you were to just come into the middle class, right, which is finance, technology, engineering, this is your CAD programs, right? These are people who know how to 3D model, do 3D printing, your mechanical engineers, your civil engineers, right? He breaks it down and he shows you the policy, and he even shows you the tax breaks that you'll start to get once you start to climb up into this middle class. But a lot of us don't get there because we're choosing certain fields, right, that just don't generate middle class incomes. So the reason why I think that's very important, right, is because I think that there's this really nasty, pervasive narrative in our community, which is that if you are of a certain economic level, the very first thing that you need to do is you need to go start a business to supplement your income. But Peter Temen argues, no, actually, you probably need to upskill into one of these areas, because the amount of money that you would make, just like, let's say, being a supervisor at Walmart versus you now turning into a mechanical engineer, the amount of money that you will make in that 1 year is likely more than you're going to make launching your business with very limited resources.
Right.
So there's an upskilling that needs to happen. Well, typically when that upskilling happens, those jobs also allow you to work remotely, which now opens you up for you to make an easier transition into other places that are going to give you a better quality of living. So it's all intertwined.
And more for your money.
And more for your money. And then here's the other thing that I want to just kind of punctuate that point with is, if anything that being behind that financial services firm taught me is that, and let me just be honest, now I'm just going to say the word white. I will never look at white people in other countries the same, right? When I see them around me, because it's not vacationing, right? And I love what I see some Black figures doing when they're bringing, you know what I mean, bringing it to the global platform, like when they do blackout events, right? Blackout cruises in Dubai and everything. And I think that's great, right? But I think there's got to be a point in our community where we have to stop seeing traveling as a party thing and a stunting thing. And right. And because when I see white people walking around after, you know, that retirement planner just opened my eyes, I said, oh, they're doing a foreign earned income exclusion right now. This is a tax benefit. Oh, they're getting, you know what I mean, a write-off on their real estate. For them, it's a wealth building activity because they know that IRS code. And we're over here and we're just thankful that we're not getting shot down and gunned down like dogs from the police. But that's short-sighted, right? We've got to say, when we travel somewhere, are you just turning up, or are you actually getting ready to come back, right? And are you making a conscious decision to divest from a country? And now that you're divesting from a country, you now need to invest in something else, right? And when I tell you this game, Michelle, I mean, they be over here having babies, right? So they're like, oh, big as a house, right? And they're like, oh no, I'm about ready to pop, because as soon as I pop this baby right here, I'm getting ready to get permanent residency. I mean, marriages, you know, having children, it's all about a strategy for them, because permanent residency or citizenship, having 2 or 3 different passports, it is a financial strategy. It opens you up to be able to invest in other systems in the world.
And for your future children to live and be true global citizens. Seriously. And that's where we need to educate ourselves. And how do we do it too? No, really, I'm like goosebumps right now, because no, I mean, and I think as you're saying that we don't know, we don't really understand everything, you know, we're just living or surviving, or, you know, I feel like we're just like the pioneers right now in 2021. You know, there's this uptick now of people who want to leave the US for a better life somewhere else. And we're all trying to figure out, like, how can we survive in that somewhere else? What can we do? Do we have to leave with that $2 million? Do we have to leave with that $300,000? A lot of people don't have it like that, right? They're just like, I just want to get out. How can I survive? It's still that I'm surviving. I'm still surviving mentality. But what can we do in these new places? I think there are a lot of opportunities, and I would absolutely love to have a talk or be on your podcast or whatever it is we figure out to educate people. I've talked a lot with Patricia and Tally. She's lived here for a long time. And, she was even sharing some insight with me about, let me try to get this right. But she said, even if you live here and you earn income in the US, there's a way where you can earn up to a certain amount. I don't know what that exact amount is, but it was significant enough, and you don't have to pay taxes, not in the US nor in Mexico. And these are things that, we need to figure out how we can educate ourselves. You can be here and you can make whatever it is. And I'm not telling people to do things illegally. I'm just saying, let's educate ourselves. Let's figure out, if you have a business in Mexico, get yourself a visa. It's not that hard. It's just do it right and set yourself up, make investments. I mean, I have met so many local Mexican people that they're all over the place. They're doing all sorts of things. And I'm impressed with that, because again, our, very conditioned mindset is that people are struggling in Mexico. They're not, they're fine. They're better than me. And, it's like, I want to learn about these things. I want to know, where can I take my little bit of, savings and whatever, and make a smart move, make a smart money move. What can I do to improve whatever later on for myself, or for my husband, for my kids, our grandkids. These are the things that we just have not been taught. All we were taught, and I can say I'm going to speak for myself. I remember when I went to community college way back in the 80s, and these guys would come around with all these applications for credit cards. What do I have business getting a credit card for? I didn't even really have a real paying job, right? Get yourself in debt, get yourself in problems. I figured out how to get out of that. Later on, just, again, more credit cards, more this, more that, how to buy a house, how to do this, getting a car loan for 5 years that wasn't worth it. Just all these things that we get sucked into because this is what we're told we should be doing it this way, and this is how it works, and blah, blah, blah. I did not learn how to be better with my finances from my parents, because my parents didn't know. And their parents didn't know, and they were from Jamaica and they moved to Canada. And it's like, this wasn't taught. I had to learn a lot of my kind of how I handle my finances. I literally learned from a white person, just like, don't do this, don't do that, and I remember being in my mid to late 20s thinking like, oh, okay, had I known this 10 years ago, I would have done this differently, and I would have done this better, and I wouldn't have done that. And so the point of saying all of that is, when we have those pieces of information and that knowledge, yes, I do think it is our responsibility to share and teach and, get us on the right path. So I am so ready for that conversation with you.
Yes. Well, thank you. I mean, and that's what the podcast will be talking about, because I'll definitely end the point on that, on this particular note. And then international white people will blow your mind, right? Because at one point I was doing a magazine with my significant other, and we were distilling this information that I was learning from these international white men, right? And it was and it just blew my mind. I mean, and you're taught, oh, well, you put yourself into a Roth IRA, and you're like, all right, but then they're like, yeah, that's one way to do it. But have you actually thought about doing a self-directed Roth IRA LLC that actually goes ahead and invests in foreign real estate? And you're like, what? You know what I mean? And so it blows your mind, in IRA lending, right? So, the reality of it is that we are, as long as we stay in that environment. It is engineered for us to keep us in survival mode. So we stay in a survival state because survival state keeps you in a very short-sighted mode. I think that we as a collective group of people, and I'm going to say this, Michelle, and it's going to come off as very elitist, but it's not meant to be elitist. Okay. So here's my disclaimer to the audience, right? But I just feel, like I said, in having authentic conversations, legal immigration, and I want people to walk away with this particular message that I'm about to make. Legal immigration is not a poor man's game. Legal immigration, right?
Right.
You start to kind of go through some of these requirements, and they're like, I need to see X amount of dollars in savings, and and this, that, and the other. But what it is, and I really want we as Black people to get this. It's a signaling. Immigration is a signaling from different countries looking for your productive. We're looking for the productive class, right? Because the reality is certain sectors of the population are never going to go into an immigration office and go apply for visas, right? Because of various reasons. But when someone sits down and says, here you go, here's my financials, here's X, Y, and Z, they've signaled to the government, this is the group of the productive class within a country.
Right.
So if you're ambitious, if you're skilled, if you are, you're brilliant, you're magnificent, you have this, I need you to understand, especially as a Black person, that you have world governments competing for you.
Exactly.
They're competing for you because all countries want a productive group of people for no other reason than the fact that they pour into the tax base of the economy. So, you know what I'm saying? So the reason why Ghana, don't get it twisted. The reason, one of the reasons why Ghana was like, well, heck, if they're shooting you over there, Black people, you can come over here. Well, Ghana knew that because the people who can afford to travel to Ghana were also the people that bought billions of dollars, you know what I mean, into their economy in the year of return. So when you sit up here and you think about the fact that you are, you're a lawyer or you're an accountant or you have any of these skill sets, and you got to go to your job and you got to code switch with these people, right? Be degraded, deal with these microaggressions. Oh my God, your hair is so pretty. Oh my God. Oh my God. And, they're paying like a dog, and you're dealing with all of these things, and you like, you know what? I can't own you today because I have this mortgage bill that's getting ready to come up.
Yes.
But when you think about all of that, I think there needs to be somewhere in the back of your mind that says, wait a minute, I'm brilliant. Wait a minute, I'm productive. Right. Wait a minute, I have economic energy. And there are places that are literally fighting to have me.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
And they offer me beaches. They offer me cooks. They offer me well-being. They offer me adequate healthcare. They offer me these things. And I do not have to be fighting, struggling, being degraded, dealing with these microaggressions. I need Blacks to genuinely understand that if that is you, I need you to know that you've got dozens of countries that are saying, please come this way.
Exactly. And I think that's key. I think that's so key that people stop thinking inside that box, and that box being, what can I do to make money over there? This is, it's like, come out of that. Now, is it just going to be a snap of a finger? No, but you're brilliant. You can come up. You might have to put a little bit of work and a plan together and some energy together and network with people that are already here, whether it's the Black community, the Mexican community, try to learn the language. There are so many opportunities here. And I also want to say this too, because I think with everything you're saying, that we want to support us and ours as well. One of the conversations I've had off and on with a friend who's lived here, she's also from Philly. She's lived here for a lot of years. And she's just like, I want us as Blacks to come to Mexico and also pour, not just on a service level, but give things back, because
Yes.
they're going through the same things too, right?
Yes.
They've experienced a lot of the same things, maybe not from necessarily a racism thing, but they've experienced it just because the level of maybe some of the education and things they don't always have access to. So in the building process of educating, how can we also pass that on,
Yes.
and let's make it happen. I just feel like we are, first of all, I'm sorry, but Black women in this expat community are so rocking out right now. I mean, I have had mostly conversations with them, and yes, I tell all of my, brothers, like, come on, guys. Even my husband, I'm like, come on, guys, like, let's get out there and show your faces, and let's encourage the others as well to see that you're here as well. But I'm telling you, there are so many Black women in this expat game right now that are really, to me, rocking out. I'm so happy that I'm in this position to meet people like yourself, to meet people that are just doing their thing. Everyone I speak to just they all have like such a wealth of information and different different perspectives, different goals. And it's so inspiring, it's just got me really like excited. I'm so excited. I'm like, yes, let's do this, and so many other people are watching these and, videos, and they're excited as well, and they're ready to talk. I know one girl I spoke to yesterday, she did not really want to get on camera. She was a little shy, and she was worried about her English because she is originally from, she grew up in Paris.
Okay.
And her parents were from, I think it was New Guinea or Guinea. Anyway, she's been living in Mexico for a long time, and she just had such an interesting perspective as well. And everything that she discussed about her journey to, from pretty much Paris, but her parents' journey from their country to Paris, it was just really, inspiring us. So they just picked up and left. She's like, yeah, they just went to Paris for opportunities, and then they went back, and they always aspired to go back. And she said her mom came to Mexico and absolutely loved it here. She's been here. So the point of saying that is that we all have a story, we all have knowledge, we all have wisdom, we all have something to offer. And I think when we start believing in this, person we see in the mirror every day, that we have so much to give back. Everyone has something to give. Everyone has something to give. And you have to see yourself as a light at all times, and in whatever capacity. I could say 10 things, and maybe that one sentence for that one person just gives them that light bulb moment, and I think that I'm just excited. Like,
Me too, and thank you. Like I said, I so appreciate this opportunity, because I just think that we do. I mean, more of us, we need to get out here, right? And I think that we have to get out of this notion. You said something about your other guest that was very that resonated with me, and especially people on that side of the world. They move to go where opportunity is. And I think that we have just been so indoctrinated in the US. We've been so indoctrinated with that American exceptionalism that we believe that the US is the only place where opportunity exists.
Exactly.
And so this notion that we have, and I think there's also a little bit of this guilt, to be honest, Michelle, where it's like, well, these immigrants come in and they make these things, and you know what I mean, and they found their opportunity. Okay, but you can be, and I tell people this all the time, who you are, where you are makes a whole bunch of difference in the world, right? And how you show up in the world. And that's fine. Good for them. I am glad that they came here and found opportunity here, right? But if you have been somewhere and the land is barren for you, get up and go find opportunity somewhere else, because just like they had to jump some borders, you might have to jump some borders too.
Right. No, it's true. It's so true. And that's why I try to tell people, okay, first there's the how do I get there? But I feel that what you're proposing about giving people ways to set a business up, how to, and then getting the legal information. That is key. That means so much in regard to just, you know what, if you want to do something, you can, and it can happen here. I was watching, I think it was Stephanie Perry. She's on Facebook. I'm sorry, on YouTube. She's on Facebook as well, but she has a YouTube channel, and she teaches about, house sitting and how to move around the world and not pay for your, cost of living and blah, 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 blah. And she was interviewing a girl in Costa Rica, and she had such an interesting journey as well, because she said, I'm in Costa Rica, I bought land, I don't know anything about farming, but I have animals, I have chickens, I'm growing stuff. And, I just feel like I would never consider doing that. But now that I live in Mexico and I see the agriculture around me, it's absolutely amazing. It's like people just buy land and they're suddenly, oh, I want to have a vineyard. I was like, I would try my hand at a vineyard. I'm like,
yes.
Why be the buyer all the time? I'm always buying it. Why not? And things like this can occur to people. And, I started like kind of considering this as something that, hey, you know what? This would actually be interesting to me. Now, if I were still in Florida, would I think of this? Absolutely not, because I'm just in my little cocoon, in my little world. So I think that those are the things that people kind of, need to come outside of their comfort zones and realize that you can afford to buy things here. You can get a little piece of land. And that's and honestly, culturally, I think that that's what a lot of the locals do. They buy land, they build a little at a time, they earn their money, they build another level. They start putting pieces and things together, they have what they need to survive. And I'm talking about, people who don't necessarily have a lot, but they work towards something and they take their time and they grow it and they build it. And I think that we come from such a snap our fingers, the dollar store, fast, quick, drive-through mentality, that we don't think always, okay, if I have an idea, maybe it's going to take me some time, but it can be successful. I just need to work at it and I need to grow it. I need to be patient. I need to put some energies into this. And I do think that a lot of those types of things exist here. And we just have to come with more open mind and,
And to that point, my neighbor, we've grown very close very quickly. But he told me a very interesting story, and it also talks about the dysfunction of thinking debt is an asset, right? But he's traveled all over the world, and he travels all over the world. And I'm like, you, if anyone, need a blog or a vlog, because he's just been to some very exotic places. Nice. But he was telling me how he had gone to the US, and I can't remember, I think he went to a hockey game or some kind of sport. But anyway, he so this man has maybe about 3 or 4 different parcels of land. His house is halfway paid off, the one that he's in right now. His house is halfway paid off. His car is paid off, right? He travels the world with his fiance. And it was really funny because when he went to the United States, he said that somebody called him a very derogatory word for a Mexican. And, and he was like, go back home, you da 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 da, right? And the funniest thing is that, because the average American only has $400 in savings, right? Just let's put that out there. So he looked at him, he goes, but he said, you poor blah, right? And so my neighbor was like, dude, what are you talking about? I probably own more than you. I probably have more than you, because in the system of America, we think that having debt, and just because we have access to that house or we have access to that vehicle, we somehow own that vehicle or own that house, but they actually own it. Like their name is on that deed. Their name is on that title.
Right. Miss 1 or 2 payments, it's not yours anymore.
It's not yours, right?
And so is your deposit.
Right.
Your down payment.
So I think that when we even talk about that, right, when we talk about just the skill set, or excuse me, when we talk about how we deal with finances, I think, because as I'm sure noticed, credit like it is in the US is not a thing, right?
Not
Here, and
even
actually
close.
most places in the world, right? So
Right.
that's been a whole, a matrix of a system that you've been, dealing with. So I think when we come down here, right, I think that we have to be, to your point, asset building, wealth building. I don't care if I have a 12 by 12. If that 12 by 12 is mine and my name is Indeed, I have probably
build up.
Right, and I can build up.
Exactly. Yes. Build up on that 12 by 12. You can have 5 levels on that 12 by 12. Yes. Yes. No, it's true. I feel that, you don't, I mean, obviously if you have more to invest, great. But, I know people who've purchased a hectare of land for 10,000 US dollars. Yes. Are you in the city and conveniently right in El Centro? No, you're not, right. But one of these days, it's yours. A hectare of land, that's 3 acres. And you have a whole land of opportunity. The soil is rich. You can build multiple houses on there, rent or sell them. I mean, yes. you can make investments and you can make money moves. You have to be patient, probably. You have to have an idea. You have to have a plan. You can't just, oh, okay. And let's say you can't. You can just dive in. Some people get lucky. I'm a planner. But my point is that the opportunities certainly exist. You can get together with a group of folks and invest in something and create a community. There are literally intentional communities here all over Mexico. Yes. There's so many opportunities. I've talked a lot about wanting to do a tiny home community. I'm like, not everyone wants to live in a ginormous house. Not everyone, right. I feel like, okay, a tiny home community could work. You can invest in land, probably doesn't cost an arm and a leg to build it. You can have your gardens there, and you can create a community where you're supporting each other, but you still have your privacy and your space. There are lots and lots of things that I think we're so just used to. At least I grew up in the era where everyone just was so used to having a job. I got to work in corporate. I got to climb up the corporate ladder. I have to have insurance. I need a 401k, blah, 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 blah. And, I left without a real plan in 2002. And I never looked back. And I was just like, okay, I'm just, I'm going to figure out something else because this is not my thing. I've done this for 15 more years and I just couldn't stand it. I had problems at every job because I'm a Scorpio and I'm difficult when I'm difficult and I don't care. And I was just like, and I worked hard. It was just, it always felt like I was never getting anywhere, and if I got even a little bit of somewhere, it was almost like a slap in my face because, oh, you gave me a percentage of a really sucky salary already raise. And that's as far as it. No, I can't. I was just like, I can't. So here I am in Mexico and I love it.
Yes. And I want to offer just one last power tip.
Yes, please do.
One last power tip. And this is the last resource that I did want to mention.
Tell me.
I would highly, so when a lot of people ask, well, why Mexico, right? Like if you have these various places, because my significant other, we qualified to go to a few places. Obviously with you being Canadian, I'm sure you know about express entry and we were going to do that. And then we were like, no. And I'll tell you what it is that changed our mind. So I would highly recommend your audience, look up the work of Dr. J. Edwin Nichols.
Is that J-A-Y?
J, just the letter J.
Edwin Nichols. Okay.
Nichols. And J. Edwin Nichols, his whole career, his story is fascinating too, but his whole career is about defining what's called axiology. And axiology is the study of how we create, interpret, measure, and communicate value. Right. Okay. It is like, and he's been hired by these, Fortune 100 companies or whatever to diversify their teams when they have to go into these international markets. And, and basically J. Edwin Nichols for me destroys this whole argument of there needs to be this unified, you know what I mean, way of thinking, and let's all get along. And what he does is he actually makes sense of what I like to call ethnopluralism, right? But he doesn't do it in a confrontational or combative way. But he says, hey, there's 4 different axiological groups, and they're either Eurocentric, that's one axiological group. They're Afrocentric, Latino-centric. You've got Asian, centric, and then you've got indigenous centric. And then he actually goes through, because he's been doing this for like 50 years, and he shows you like the different logic patterns, the different, you know what I mean, how it's, communicated. Like one is diunital logic and dichotomous logic, and I mean it's brilliant. Anyway. So when I thought about that, right, when my significant other and I, we were talking about where we were going to go initially, we were going to go to Canada, because we could not deal with everything that was the US that was happening in 2020. I mean, I was already done anyway, but then that was just like, all right, we're super done. But when I looked at it from J. Edwin Nichols' work, I said, why would I go to Canada? Canada is a little US. Canada is very Eurocentric in their axiology and their Eurocentric identifying, right? And so is the United States. Well, what do I know based off of what Dr. J. Edwin Nichols says? Well, he says that true Afro, Latino and Afro are actually the same axiology. So I said, well, maybe we need to go south of the border, right? And Michelle, I will tell you, I have met so many Afro-identifying Mexicans, right? And I hate to say this, but I hate to say it because it's taboo, right? But I have listened back into the States about the complaints that the Latinos that people have come across don't really feel like that Black-Brown coalition, right? Right. And the one thing that I just after listening to Dr. J. Edwin Nichols, right? He really does a phenomenal job of separating axiology from phenotype, right? So he's like, when he would work with particular employees, he would say, well, you could be Black phenotype, but you might be Asian identifying. So I would go put you in the Asian market, so you could be the Asian sales manager, because I know you're going to be able to, you know what I mean? You're going to perform, beautifully in sales. I don't look at your phenotype as much as I look at your axiology, and that's where I can tell you're going to thrive. And so when I had listened to a lot of people in the United States talk about their disappointment that there was no true Black-Brown coalition in the United States with the Latinos, well, the United States is a Euro-identifying country, right? So those people who migrate, regardless of what they look like phenotypically, right, probably are attracted to the States because of the money that can be made, but because there is a similarity in that axiology, right? Correct. And so for me, I had to do something that was reversed. So I needed to go to a place where they had an Afro-identifying axiology, because that's where I knew that I would thrive. And, and then Dr. J. Edwin Nichols' work has proven to be true. I mean, I can have a conversation, and my neighbor, who is from Sinaloa, right, and now lives here in Merida, is like, do you know that I just watched High on the Hog? And let me tell you something about our African roots. I mean, and she's like, our African roots. And then, I mean, and then, and then my
oh, by the way, that was really good.
It was.
Oh, it was so good.
And then like my immigration attorney is like, Takiyah, I love Black people, right? And to sit up here and to be at coffee with her and just to let it, like I love Black people, like your history and da-da-da-da-da and this, that, and so it is very, very refreshing. And so here's my power tip to anyone that is going to move abroad. I would highly recommend that you check out Dr. J. Edwin Nichols' work, right? Okay. Because we can talk about all of the amenities that we can have, but at the end of the day, a lot of us are leaving. There's a lot of Black brain drain coming from the United States because it's here. It's the axiology. There is a weight, and there's a psychological healing a lot of us are aiming to see. And so I would highly encourage you, if you can identify what you identify with. Maybe you're phenotypically Black, but you're Euro-identifying. Maybe you're Afro-identifying. Maybe you're Asian-identifying. Maybe you're whatever. And then go to those countries that support that kind of axiology.
Right.
For me, as an Afro-identifying individual, and I had a partner who needed to stay close to the United States, Mexico was a no-brainer for me because it's an Afro-identifying country.
Right.
Believe it or not, whether they tell you that or not.
Well, it is. Yeah,
Right.
exactly. Whether they believe it or they don't, it really is. It is. It just is. I mean, there's definitely a lot of Afro, a lot of things that we can look back and see similarities and things that are definitely a part of their culture that we are familiar with. I think that, again, you know, that's a whole nother topic, but a lot of the locals don't think this way, you know, just it's because of whatever, it just wasn't in, you know, there was in the subconscious, but not in the consciousness of their culture. It's just, you know, sometimes I think I've met people and they're like, oh, I am Black, you know. So that's a whole nother subject. So I have here Dr. J. Edwin Nichols. I'm going to add that, Peter Temen, and Raj Shetty. Okay. Yes, I'm going to add those in the descriptions, but no, this has been amazing. All my interviews are always almost 2 hours long, girl. I am like, how do we, like, you know, but it's cool. I love it because, you know, I just feel like everyone, as I said earlier on, everyone has a story and everyone has like so much to share and so much knowledge. And I think that this is just an amazing time to live in terms of technology and, you know, sharing and also giving that pass to people like, hey, you know, live somewhere else if you want to, here's how. And it's not that complicated. Like, let's not think that this is just for others. We could do it too. I say that all the time. It's on you too. So I guess we talked about Merida. We kind of covered a lot of different things. I would love to get in on the podcast conversation a little bit more.
Yes. Thank you.
I've been invited to be, and hopefully in the near future. I think they're launching in August, but I think the end goal is going to be sometime in September. We're going to have a radio station. So we'll definitely collab. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I have a show on the radio station and there'll be more out there once we kind of solidify it a little bit. But my program is going to be stuff like this. And then the last segment will be music. Island music. That's the goal. Yeah, same to you. So we'll definitely have more talks like this. I'm kind of trying to come up with it's 6 days a week, so it's like more on my plate again. But the idea is to, you know, have people who are expats encouraging, and I would love to do a segment on just educating ourselves financially and business and things like this. You know, I just think that let's throw that net out there, right? And let's catch who we can and who wants it. Here's a hand, you know, we'll pull you up out that bucket. Yeah. So, all right. Thank you so much, Takiyah.
Thank you.
Is there anything else you want to share?
No. Basically, the podcast, I will keep you posted. So perhaps you can go ahead and share when I finally get that thing launched. My equipment is held hostage in a storage unit right now in the States, which is what's preventing me. But the podcast will be called Black Exodus because Well, you already know
Oh,
how
I
I feel
saw it.
about
I
that.
saw
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So
Good
it
for
will be called
you.
Blacksmith. And we're going to
Okay.
be talking about these things. We're going to be talking about those kind of really hard truths that we need to hear.
Mhm.
But those truths are designed to make you better and make you not only just a global citizen, but a financial global citizen.
Yes.
And the various strategies that we can use, the various global tools and the various privacy focused counter strategies that we can use with those global tools to stop being such soft targets in a very destructive system of white supremacy. So that's basically what it is. And we're going to just kind of talk about the nitty gritty that, that we just don't tell each other, right? But we need to be telling each other because it's there to save our lives and it's to empower each other. So when that is available, I will definitely reach out to you.
Yes,
and you're going to
please
be a guest
do.
on that show.
Please do. Please do let me know. And feel free, as I said, on Black owned Mexico to post things and promote things, whatever it is. We're all about being positive. So it's really a place and space where I don't try to limit people. I'm hoping to get more interaction, but I'm not limiting people as long as it's respectful to put whatever they want out there. Like let's share, let's information share, and also anything locally. If there are locals that provide services that are really specific to us. Hair is a challenge. I mean, we are always looking for someone over here to get our hair done. But yeah, that's definitely on the list as well. So anyway, Takiyah, thank you so much for all this time and all your insight. I've had moments of goosebumps and just laughter. And really, I learned so much from you. I'm really excited to share this with the audience. And I will certainly put in all these recommendations for things to read and just kind of like educate ourselves on.
All right. Well, thank you. And it was my pleasure.
Thank you so much. Have a good rest of your day and we'll speak soon. And you tell C I said hi.
Yes, I will do.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Bye.